Good morning. Today is Monday, October 13th, 2025. This is the Urban Hope Refuge Morning Devotions. We are continuing our reading today from the 2025 Daily Bible Reading Guide published by the American Bible Society. For the month of October, we are reading under the theme God's Strengthening Word with the focus on pursuing peace and justice. And before I begin my reading, I just want to take this opportunity to say that I was young, but now I'm old, and I have never seen the righteous forsaken, nor his um, I've never seen the righteous forsaken, nor his, skipping a word, begging bread. Well, I'm doing the best that I can this morning because I was determined to do. And I want to thank those of you who have prayed me through 4 days of hospitalization. By the grace of God, I was able to come home on yesterday afternoon, and the main thing on my mind was to sit right here this morning and to share with you one of my most favorite scriptures in the Bible that gives me so much courage as it relates to our theme for this month. And I am reading from Numbers chapter 27, verses 1 through 11 in the New Living Translation. And this passage of scripture deals with the daughters of Zelophehad. Numbers 27, verses 1 through 11, reveals a God who values justice. He hears the cry of the courageous and ensures that his promises include everyone, men and women alike. Verse 1. One day, a petition was presented by the daughters of Zelophehad, Mahlah, Noah, Hoglah, Milcah, and Tirzah. Their father, Zelophehad, was a descendant of Hefer, son of Gilad, son of Machir, son of Manasseh, son of Joseph. You can see the lineage. Verse 2. These women stood before Moses, Eleazar, the priest, the tribal leaders, and the entire community at the entrance of the tabernacle. Verse 3. Our father died in the wilderness, they said. He was not among Korah's followers who rebelled against the Lord. He died because of his own sin, but he had no sons. Why should the name of our father disappear from his clan just because he had no sons? Give us property along with the rest of our relatives. So Moses brought their case before the Lord, and the Lord replied to Moses, the claim of the daughters of Zelophehad is legitimate. You must give them a grant of land along with their father's relatives. Assign them the property that would have been given to their father. And give the following instructions to the people of Israel. If a man dies and has no son, then give his inheritance to his daughters. And if he has no daughters either, transfer their inheritance to his brothers. And if he has no brothers, give his inheritance to his father's brothers. But if his father has no brothers, give his inheritance to the nearest relative in his clan. This is a legal requirement for the people of Israel, just as the Lord commanded Moses. This concludes our reading for today of Numbers chapter 27, verses 1 through 11. Now, let's put this into a historical setting so that we could get the meaning of the scripture. The book of Numbers records Israel's journey through the wilderness from Mount Sinai to the edge of the promised land. All these years, they have been pushing to get to the promised land, which was Canaan. So by the time of the writing of chapter 27, the Israelites had camped on the plains of Moab, which was just east of the Jordan River, preparing to enter into Canaan. So God is giving final instructions for organizing this new nation. And among those instructions included laws about land inheritance, because land was essential for family identity. It was essential for survival, and it was the covenant promise. Let's look at the characters that are included in this passage of scripture. There was the man Zelophehad, a man from the tribe of Manasseh, and as we read, he was a descendant of Joseph. He died in the wilderness without any sons. Now, there was one piece that I read that I really want to point out, that there were men who had turned against Moses, plotting against him, wanting to take over the entrance into the promised land. And the scripture says that the earth opened up and swallowed them, which my mind imagines an earthquake. And all of those individuals, hundreds of them, who had turned against Moses were swallowed up. And of course, it meant that their families had no inheritance in the promised land because of their betrayal. Well, these girls' father died as well. He died in the wilderness without sons. But to show you how just God is, when they went to the priest and to Moses to express to them, listen, our father died in the wilderness without sons. Why should that affect us and we not receive his inheritance? And they made a very important point to which I just referred. They said, our father was not a follower of that betrayed Joseph. He died, and he may have had some sins, but they were not the sin of betrayal of, against the individual that God had chosen to lead us. They knew their history. They weren't just saying, this is who we are, this is what we want, this is what we deserve. They knew their history, and they went with a sense of humility. So the daughters remembered their faith. They remembered their courage, and there was a sense of justice for them. So under Israel's law, inheritance law, at that time, property passed from the father to the sons. That's how their inheritance came about. But Zelophehad, as I stated before, did not have sons. So his family risked losing their name, their land, and place within the tribe as they went into the new land, the promised land that God had promised them, the covenant relationship that God had with them. So the daughters saw this injustice and approached Moses and the priest and the community leaders at the tent of meetings. And a bold and rare act for women took place in that society because women were not out there publicly like that. Well, there was a petition that was made. Oh, I want to tell this story so badly, and the time is against me. But they made a petition. Our fathers died in the wilderness, and he didn't have any sons. Why should our father's name disappear from his clan because he had no sons? And they said in Numbers 27 verses 3 and 4, give us property um give us property among our father's relatives. That was their petition. Their request was not selfish by any means. It was rooted in justice and it was rooted in covenant faith. God had made that promise. They wanted their family's name and inheritance to continue in the promised land that God had promised. I have 2 minutes. Let me tell you God's response. Moses did not say, I'm the leader and this is my decision. No, Moses brought their case before the Lord. And guess what? God affirmed the daughter's claims. He said in verse 7, the daughters of Zelophehad are right. You most certainly give them property. You must certainly give them property as an inheritance among their father's relatives. God then established a new law. Look at what these women did through their requests, through their boldness, through their faithfulness, through their reverence to God. God then established a new law. If a man dies without a son, his inheritance should go next to his daughters, next, if no daughter, to his brothers, next, if no brothers, to his father's brothers, and finally, if no parental uncles, to the nearest relative. This became a lasting ordinance in Israel, and it even carries over to our laws today. So, what is the meaning and significance of this? In 1 minute left. One, God values justice and equity. He affirmed the daughters of Zelophehad's plea as right, showing that he cares deeply about the fairness and protecting the vulnerable. Number two, women's courage can lead to change. These daughters' boldness resulted in a nationwide legal reform, a rare example in ancient law where women's rights were recognized by divine authority. Three, oh wow, inheritance reflects God's promise. The promised land symbolized God's faithfulness to his covenant. Their desire to inherit it showed their faith in God's promise, and even before entering the promised land. And four, leaders must bring justice issues before God. Important 4 points. Moses didn't decide on his own. He sought God's guidance. And this is what true leadership means: listening to people's concerns and seeking divine wisdom before acting. I know I'm over, but y'all got to give me a minute. I laid in a hospital bed for 4 days just to get to this point, and I'm breathing pretty good. Life lessons. God hears the voices of the overlooked because people overlook you. God doesn't overlook you. Like Zelophehad's daughters, those who are marginalized, they were marginalized. They can confidently bring their case before God. He listens and he responds with justice. Ooh. And number 2 lesson, courage can correct injustice. Don't be afraid and lie down. Number 3, faith acts on God's promises. They believed in the inheritance before they saw it. They believed. And lastly, and I've got to go, justice grows through obedience. You can't be disobedient and do what you want to do and expect justice. God's law expanded through this event, reminding us that justice is dynamic. It grows as God's people listen and apply his heart to new circumstances. Romans 27 1 through 11 is a fundamental message about justice, inheritance, and the rights of women in Israel's early community. It tells the story of these 5 daughters whose boldness and faith prompted a new law that reflected God's fairness, justice, and God's compassion. Listen, I wish I could say more. I'm 3 minutes over, so let me just say this. Pray your way through the day, walk with the King, and be a blessing.